Lesson 3, Part 1E, Uses and Translations of Participles. There are three main ways that a participle can be used, and they are the same way that any adjective can be used: attributively, predicatively, and substantively. Let's look first at attributively. Most of the time that a participle is acting like an adjective, it has an article right in front of it, just like any attributive adjective. Occasionally it won't have an article, but will still be attributive just the same way that other adjectives can. If it is used attributively, the participle will either go right after the noun it describes or before the word they describe. Sometimes you can also put participles at the beginning of the sentence. A general rule of thumb for attributive participles is: 1, put it after the word it describes. 2, if that doesn't work, try putting it right before the word it describes. And 3, if that doesn't work, put it at the beginning of the sentence. This is mostly used for predicative participles though. So this is how we want to translate them. You can find them anywhere in the sentence, though normally they'll be near what they're describing. But when you want to translate one of these, try first putting it after. If it doesn't work to put it after the word it's describing, put it directly in front of it. If neither of those two works, put it at the beginning of the sentence. And we're going to translate present active participles used attributively with ing, such as seeing or reaching. We're going to translate present middle passive participles used attributively with being blanked, such as being seen or being reached. Because this is present, which is a progressive tense, we need that ing in there somewhere. And then when we've got passives going on, we really don't have middle participles. That's really not a thing. We're going to go ahead and parse them as middle passive, but we're never going to translate something as middle. Just don't worry about that. So we're going to translate it as passive. When it's passive, it needs a form of be before the verb. So being reached or being seen. All right, so let's take a look. We've got ha apostolon me, anthropos blepe autein. The man sending me is seeing her. So we've got the is seeing her at the end here. So let's look at the rest of the sentence. The seeing me man. Which man? He's the subject of the sentence. The seeing me man, or the man who, sending, the sending me man, or the man who is sending me. Or I'm going to get this as short as I can and it still sound good. The man sending me, or the man that is sending me, or the man who is sending me. Any of those would be fine. So I try it afterwards. That's the best place to put it. If I tried to put this in front of man, it would sound really funny. The sending me man is seeing her. We can understand that sentence, but it doesn't sound like proper English. Now, if I put it at the very beginning of the sentence, it wouldn't be wrong, but it's going to pull the focus just a little bit. See if you can catch how the focus gets pulled. Sending me, the man is seeing her. You see how that's sort of like while he was doing this action, this other action happened. Whereas when we put it here, the man sending me is seeing her. It's pointing out which man. That's actually going to be the difference between attributive and predicative. Predicative is going to give us a sense of two different actions happening at the same time, or two different actions and one is happening before the other when we get to aorist participles. But the idea with attributive is we're going to point out which one. So this is the best place to put it. Now you'll notice, because it is attributive, either structure of attributive works, where you've got the definite article, then the adjective, and then the noun, or you've got a definite article and a noun, and then a definite article, and then the adjective. Both end up the exact same way. The man sending me is seeing her. All right, lego to graphanti logon, anthropo. All right, so here we have, I am speaking. I am speaking to the man. Which man? The writing a word man. Now here, We've got our participle. It needs to agree with the word that it's describing. It's describing anthropo, so it's in the dative singular. It has a direct object. Its direct object is logon, so logon is in the accusative, same as me was up here. Those are the direct objects of our participles, so they're going to be in the accusative case. I'm speaking to the man writing a word, or the man who is writing a word, or a man that is writing a word. And I could try to stick it before I'm speaking to the writing a word man, but again, that's not really proper English, though we can understand that actually helps us understand a little bit better that we're pointing that one out. I'm speaking to the writing a word man. Now, if I stuck at the beginning of the sentence, this would make it entirely wrong. Writing a word, I am speaking to the man. Now writing a word is describing I, and that is incorrect. We can tell because in Greek, it's in the dative case, it's describing man. So it has to go somewhere close to man so we can make sure that it's describing man in English, since we don't have cases in English. And again, same meaning, different structure for the attributive. We've got definite article noun, definite article adjective. That works just as well. All right, ha kathemenos. Anthropos blepe apostolon, the sitting man is seeing an apostle. Now here, this one, we actually ended up sticking it in front of it. You'll notice these ones went afterwards when they had a direct object. This one doesn't have a direct object, so it goes before. That's sort of the rule of thumb of how we do things in English, but you can always just play with it and see which one sounds better. Which man? The sitting man is seeing an apostle. If you said the man sitting is seeing an apostle, that just sounds a little funny. Here's an example. That one was a deponent. So it's translated actively, even though the form of it is passive. Here is one that is actually passive. Ha baptizamenas anthropos kaire. The man being baptized is rejoicing. We need the being whatever because it's in the passive. This is not a deponent. So the man being baptized is rejoicing. And if we tried it in front, the being baptized man, that one sounds funny as well. You can only put one word participles in front of nouns. That's the only way that that works. All right, so those were all attributive, where there's a definite article right in front of the participle. Now we're going to look at predicative, where there is no definite article. Most of the time, when a participle does not have an article, it is going to be used almost like an adverb, telling something that was going on at the same time for the present tense. Other tenses tell us something was before or after whatever else was happening. So it's going to give a relationship as it regards to time. And the idea of a present participle is that it is happening at the same time. Technically, though, the participle is still functioning as an adjective and will describe something in the sentence, most often the subject. For predicative participles, most of the time, for translating them, we're going to put them at the beginning of the sentence. We can possibly put them at the end, but the beginning is going to be the best place for them. And that's actually where we'll find them the most in Greek as well. Now, note, most of these will describe the subject, so they will be in the nominative. If they're in another case, it is likely that they are being used as an adjective. They're being used attributively just without a definite article, and should go before or after the word they're describing to make sure it's clear. To translate, sometimes you'll need to supply the word while with ing or being blanked. Ing for active, being blanked for passive. Sometimes you can just put in the participle phrase, but sometimes you need that while. So here's an example. Doxadzon tan thean ha apostolos pros eucheta. Glorifying God, the apostle was praying. And of course, there should be a tau in there. Or the apostle was praying, glorifying God. Because there are no other nouns in the sentence, sticking it at the end works just fine. We could also say, while glorifying God, the apostle was praying. We could actually even also say, while he was glorifying God, the apostle was praying. Occasionally, you're going to have to throw in a subject and a verb in there. You'll get a feel for that as you go. So don't just start doing that straight off the bat, but as you find out how, as you get the feel for how that works, you can do that as well. Hoi anthropoi ekradzan kerusantes pan lagan. preaching the word, the men were crying out. Now, this one comes at the end of the sentence, but it is in the nominative. It matches the subject in gender, number, and case, masculine, plural, nominative. So it is describing the men. So preaching the word, the men were crying out. Or because there are no other nouns in this sentence, it works to say the men were crying out, preaching the word. Either of those works. We could also say while preaching the word, the men were crying out, or while they were preaching the word, the men were crying out. Ha apostolos, missing that tau again, pros euketa baptizon ton anthropon. While baptizing the man, the apostle was praying. All right, so it's in the masculine singular nominative. It matches the subject. And so we could have said baptizing the man, the apostle was praying. That would have worked fine. While baptizing the man just felt a little bit better. So that's what I chose. We could also say the apostle was praying while baptizing the man, or the apostle was praying, baptizing the man just sounds a little bit funny by itself. Apatheneskon ha anthropos blepe ton thean. While dying, the man is seeing God. We could have also said dying, the man is seeing God. That sounds a little funny. We would not want to say the dying man is seeing God, because that would be an attributive use. It puts the focus in just a little bit of a different place. It's then pointing to which man? The dying man, instead of the focus being the time element. While dying, the man is seeing God. It sounds like it is true that this is the dying man, but that's not the focus. That's not the emphasis of the sentence. It's not what the author is trying to communicate. So we want to make sure that we translate what the author is trying to communicate. Hoi anthropoi elegan estiantes ento oiko. While eating in the house, the men were speaking. It's in the, our participle is in the masculine plural nominative, which matches our subject. We could just said eating in the house, the men were speaking. I liked it with a while a little bit better. We could also say while they were eating in the house, the men were speaking. That would be fine. But just by way of note, if you do that, you have to make the verb match the verb tense of this verb over here. So it wouldn't be while they are eating in the house, the men were speaking. That even sounds funny in English. While they were eating in the house, the men were speaking. While he is dying, the man is seeing God. While they were praying, or while he was praying, the apostle, no, while he was baptizing the man, the apostle was praying. While they were preaching the word, while they were while he was glorifying God. It has to match the verb if you're gonna do that structure, which is why I said don't try that straight off the bat. But you can get that as you get used to it. Let's see here. Speramenon ta sperma epipte. All right, here we've got one that's in the passive. While being sown, the seed was falling. And it's describing the subject. It's in the neuter plural nominative. Could be neuter plural accusative, but there's nothing for it to be describing, so can't be that. All right, general rule of thumb. If the participle has the definite article, it's because it is helping us know exactly which person or thing we are talking about. Ha apostolon me anthropos blepe autein. The man sending me is seeing her. It's pointing out which man are we talking about. The man sending me is the one we're talking about, not some other man. If the participle doesn't have a definite article, more information is being given, but we're not trying to specify which person or thing. Apostolon me ha anthropos blepe autein. While sending me, the man is seeing her. You notice the only difference between these sentences is the definite article is here versus here. Only difference. Now, of course, this one could have had a definite article right there. It would have meant the exact same thing up there for an attributive structure. So the only difference is whether or not this participle has a definite article in front of it. That'll be the difference between attributive pointing out which person and predicative giving some sense of some other information. All right, now we've got substantive. Often a participle will be used substantively with no noun that it's describing. Just like other substantive adjectives, you can supply man or men, woman or women, thing or things, depending on the gender and number. Now, these will pretty much always have a definite article. If for some strange reason it doesn't, it would be that there's nothing in the sentence that it could possibly be describing. But that would be pretty rare. It's almost always going to have a definite article. So, ha apostolon me blepe autain. The sending me one, or the sending me man, is seeing her. Lego to graphanti lagan. I'm speaking to the writing a word person. Ha kathemenos blepe apostolon. The sitting man is seeing an apostle. Ha baptizamenos kaire. The man being baptized is rejoicing. Summary. If a participle is used attributively, put the translation after or before the noun being described. If a participle is used predicatively, put the translation at the beginning or end of the sentence. If a participle is used substantively, supply man or men, women or women, or thing or things, depending on the gender and the number. To translate an active participle, say blanking. To translate a middle passive participle, say being blanked. To translate a present participle being used predicatively, you may need to supply while.